It's the Best Damn Sports Show podcast with your hosts, Jason Cahill and Bernie Kim.
I'm going to say, Bernie, your name has never sounded cooler than when Chuck D says it.
I think I actually kind of have street cred now. Kind of.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I think the rap song that we did on the clock, which you can find over on YouTube if you want, or on our MySpace page, I think that gave us a little street cred.
Maybe.
But Chuck D actually saying your name, I think, gives you even more street cred.
Yeah, I'm going to record that and play that when I meet people, and then hopefully they'll think I'm cool.
Right, exactly. So if you have any comments for us for the podcast, send them our way at bestdampodcast@yahoo.com. We have our own email, so send us whatever you got, and we'll read them on the air. I promise, good or bad. bestdampodcast@yahoo.com. So we had a really good series of shows this week on Best Damn Sports Show. Some great guests. We had Jonathan Papelbon, Chuck D, Commissioner David Stern, John Franco, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Kenny Mayne stopped by. So I'd say we had a pretty good week.
Power packed. We got the commish. Love the commish.
We did get the commish. Here's my favorite part about David Stern's appearance on Best Damn. You know from either his appearances on our show or listening to him on ESPN or other shows that he's about as knowledgeable about basketball and the history of the game as you really could hope to find. And he comes to our show, and we've got Gary Payton sitting in as a guest host this week. And I got this from one of our other producers who witnessed this firsthand, but David Stern said, now, was he the glove? Was he the glove? He didn't know Gary Payton's nickname, which
it's shocking. The guy knows you can't stump the guy. You can't pull a fast one on this guy. And then he can't remember one of the most famous nicknames of the 90s of a 9-time All-Star. It's shocking.
I found that very surprising. But pretty funny and a little endearing. I like him maybe just a little bit better because you know what? He asked. He didn't just go and pretend to know it. He said, hey, by the way, what's GP's nickname?
Everybody likes a hero who's a little flawed, too. A little flawed.
Yeah, and it was a bummer, by the way, that John Sally was not in that segment. John Sally, for those who didn't see the shows this week, is in India visiting the Dalai Lama.
I can't imagine what they're talking about.
Well, he's visiting the Dalai Lama, but he's with Morgan Freeman visiting the Dalai Lama.
What a trio, right? That's a trio.
Who are three people who have never been in my kitchen? But yeah, so we'll hear those stories from Sally next week when he comes back. But filling in for Sal was, like I said, Gary Payton was here, John Calipari, and David Boomer Wells. So we had three great guest hosts and some pretty cool guests. So we talked about the commish for a bit. Chuck D was on our show, and sometimes we have guests that are booked on the calendar, and we slot them in for one segment. Maybe they get about 7 or 8 minutes of TV time. But I did the pre-interview with Chuck D, and I literally talked to him on the phone for an hour.
He's a hero of yours, or you're a huge fan of his, right?
I grew up a huge fan of Public Enemy, and I always knew that he was a big sports fan as well, but I never realized how big a sports fan he was until I got him on the phone. He is, not only a fan, and he grew up on Long Island. He's a Mets fan, a Jets fan, loves the Knicks, but he knows the history of sports so well, and it was just so much fun talking to him.
It's always good when a rapper or a musician or an actor can come on this show, and you don't have to hold their hand. You don't have to fit sports into the interview.
Right.
They can just talk about. There's a few guys that can do that. Chuck D, Vince Vaughn, even like a Nick Lachey. I mean, you don't have to force it in there.
Yeah, because the problem is sometimes celebrities and people who are not athletes get booked on the show, and you're unsure of whether or not they know sports, and inevitably you get them on the phone and do these pre-interviews, and you find out, well, they know absolutely nothing about sports. And it's tough kind of crafting a segment around that.
For a sports show.
Yeah, exactly. So Chuck D he knew his stuff, and he and I talked for an hour. And it's amazing. I didn't realize that I had so much in common with Chuck D. But, back when I was a kid growing up in Jericho, Long Island, I was playing a lot of the Stratomatic baseball. I don't know if you...
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it's that baseball game. You flip cards, you roll the dice. So I was talking to Chuck D, and he dropped Stratomatic in the conversation, and I was floored. Just to think that years ago, he in Roosevelt, Long Island, me in Jericho, Long Island, couldn't have had two more different upbringings. He's in his bedroom playing Stratomatic baseball. So am I.
I mean, this is the guy that was on the forefront of gangster rap. I mean, Public Enemy, Flava Flav. The reality of what I saw this when he came in studio couldn't have been different from the image painted in my mind whenever the first time I heard Public Enemy.
Yeah, I'm going to say that a lot of people, have a perception of him, and he's misunderstood in that way. He came and couldn't have been nicer, and couldn't have been a better guest. So, after I talked to him for an hour on the phone, I said, well, we got to do more than just one segment with this guy. So we ended up doing two, and they were, I think, two of the best segments that we did all week. And GP and David Wells really loved being next to him and just talking sports with him. So that was pretty cool. Really like that. And then, another guest we had this week that I was thrilled about, being a Mets fan from Long Island, we had John Franco on. And when I heard he was coming on, well, first of all, this is a future Hall of Famer, if you ask me. Although I think if you ask other people, they're thinking he's not a future Hall of Famer. I mean, look, 424 saves, most by any left-handed relief pitcher. But, you hear not the dominant closer of his generation, and, I certainly agree with that.
There's nothing wrong with being very good.
No.
There's nothing wrong with having a long,
although it's not the Hall of Very Good, is it? It's the Hall of Fame.
But he had a very successful career.
He did.
Some very, very good seasons.
He did. So I was excited about that. I got him on the phone, and I talked to him. And, one of the things I wanted to bring up with him, and there are things that I'll bring up in the pre-interview with a lot of these athletes that I know we're not going to ask about on the air. And I said to him, look, I've heard so many David Cohn stories that when you get here in the green room, I promise we won't ask him on the air, but you got to promise me. I'm going to come up to you. I'm going to ask you about two specific stories. All I want is a yes, it happened, or a no, it did not happen. That's all I want. You got to promise me that. And he said, that's a deal. When I come in and I meet you and we're talking in the green room, you ask me what you want and I'll tell you. I'll give you an honest answer. So he comes in, and I don't know if you, Bernie, know the two David Cohn stories that I'm talking about.
I have a feeling I know one of them.
Okay, so one of them has to do with, how do I put this? He did something. This is a rumor that David Cohn in the bullpen did something that some do late at night that might require a sock and or a tissue. So I'm trying to be as vague as possible.
I don't think you were being very vague there.
So anyway, Franco comes in, and that's the first one. I said, okay, you got to tell me if this is true or not. And he said he obviously didn't see it. He said he's heard it 1,000,000 times. He could believe it, but he never actually witnessed it firsthand. So he couldn't confirm that.
Yikes.
And then there was another story that I had heard, and again, I'm going to try and be as vague as possible. It involved someone in a wheelchair and a checklist. Let's just leave it at that. So I said that to Franco, and he started cracking up. And he said, I thought I'd heard all the David Cohn stories, but he'd never heard that one.
He had never heard that one. That's the one that I had heard time and I always hear that story when David Cohn comes up.
I feel like somebody had been on our show before who had played with Cohn and had confirmed that story, but I guess that's not the case, because if anybody's going to know, it's John Franco.
Well, I think what we can pull from the reaction of Franco to both of those is that David Cohn is out there.
He's out there.
He's out there, and the fact that he didn't scoff at any of these. None of these stories. He said, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
put
it didn't shock him.
Yeah,
didn't surprise him. Now, to be clear, I don't know that any of this is true. I don't know that these stories are true. These are rumors, but John Franco seemed to have heard them before, so I found that pretty funny. One other great thing that we did this week, Bernie, you can talk about this. We had John Calipari in as a guest host, and Cal, not only is he a great guy, but he's such a great sport. We present him sometimes with some comedy bits that we want to do with him, and he pretty much agrees to do this stuff. It's stuff that if Mike Krzyzewski were in here, I don't really think he'd be agreeing to a lot of this stuff. But that's the kind of guy Cal is. He's great. We love him. And, the comedy sketch that Bernie, you presented to him this week was sort of a spoof of the sketch that they did on Saturday Night Live with Chris Kattan and Will Ferrell, where they played the song "What Is Love." It's the Night at the Roxbury.
Night at the Roxbury, yeah.
Right. So why don't you talk about how good Cal was in that one?
Well, what happened was we had this idea. I went to Cal. I said, "Hey, you want to be? We're trying to have this comedy sketch where you're recruiting a player, but it just turns into a Night at the Roxbury type thing." He's very hesitant. He turned me down once, but then he came back and he said, "All right, maybe I'll do it." And then this week he finally agreed to do it. And this is a guy that 2 months ago was within one free throw.
He was coaching the national championship game.
One free throw would have given him the national title, and he was nice enough to be in this sketch where he's shaking his head like, bobbing his head to "What Is Love," or, our version of it.
And he's wearing the outfit.
He's wearing a suit.
He's wearing the gold chain.
This is going to be... He's not much of an actor, I'll say that, but he is...
No, but he tried.
He tried. He gave it his all, and hopefully he'll approve it, and we're going to put it on the air, and you guys will see.
Yeah, Cal gets an A for effort, but he did say at the end of taping, he goes, "All right, I need to see this before you guys actually air it."
Because we've put him out there before in some situations where he wasn't too happy. We put him in Vegas. We put him in a lifeguard chair, and he didn't know what he was doing. We're just like, "Hey, sit up here."
By the way, do you remember why he was in the lifeguard chair?
I have no idea why.
Okay, we put him in a lifeguard chair because he was refereeing chicken
Oh
fights.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. The Hooters girls having chicken fights in the swimming pool, and Cal's in the ref's chair with a whistle.
He got a lot of heat. Because of that. He got a lot of negative phone calls and emails, and understandably so. So now that's kind of made him a little reluctant to do whatever we want, just without even thinking about it. So, but luckily we taped this bit, and hopefully the next time he's on, we'll show it to him and he'll like it.
Exactly. Hey, so one of the things I thought we'd try this week, on Best Damn, we do this thing called Checking In With, where the idea is we want to know what athletes and actors and celebrities are doing at this exact minute. Because we wonder that sometimes.
Always.
Yeah. I'm sitting at home and I'm watching TV. It's 10 o'clock at night, and I wonder, I wonder what Jimmy Kimmel is doing at this exact moment. Or I wonder what Tory Hunter is doing at this second. So, that's the idea. And we've gotten some pretty good responses. Jimmy Kimmel's was good. Artie Lang's had a good one. Anthony Anderson. So we've had some fun people. So I figured on the podcast, maybe we check in with one of our Best Damn hosts. Because you know what? I am wondering right now, what is Chris Rose doing at this exact minute right now?
Who knows?
Well, we're going to find out. Let's get Chris Rose on the phone and check in with him, shall we? This is great. We're going to get his voicemail, aren't we?
He's big-timing us.
See, this never happens on the show. Everybody always answers on the show. Leave it to our podcast to actually get the first voicemail ever.
Rose big-timing us.
Wow. This is unlike him.
Hi, you've reached the cell phone of Chris Rose. Sorry, I can't get to you right now, but
this is great.
Same number.
Let's leave him a message.
Called. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks very much.
To leave a voice message, press 1, or just wait for the tone.
Roser, it's Cahill and Bernie. You're on the Best Damn Sports Show Period podcast. Where are you, buddy?
What's up, man? We love your voicemail, but where are you?
We're checking in with. We want to see what you're doing at this exact moment. And you're big-timing us.
We've never been big-timed on the show with any of our athlete or celebrity friends, but you're big-timing the podcast.
Right. We call Jimmy Kimmel. He answers immediately. But Chris Rose, no. I'm Chris Rose. I'm doing other things.
I got to watch Cleveland stuff. Ooh.
All right, Roser. Maybe next time we check in with you, you will actually answer your phone. Well, there you go.
That went swimmingly.
Yeah, I'm gonna say we're 0 for 1.
0 for 1. Let's see if we can.
Maybe if we call John Sally in India, he might have answered his phone.
He's good with the phone. Sally's very good with the phone. Always good with the return call. Should we just call somebody at their desk right now? Is that
yeah, we should call a Best Damn staff member just so that we get somebody on the phone. We look pretty foolish right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chris Rose not available. All right. I mean, what can you do? I wanted to get on Chris for a second because I don't know if you caught the first segment of the show on Wednesday. We were talking about Wells' perfect game. So Rose mentions on the air that I was at Wells' perfect game. And he says, you know, Boomer, tall, skinny kid with gout. So he basically, he outed me.
He outed your gout on national television.
So I come into work the next day, and I have an email waiting for me. It's from a friend I have not heard from in over a year. And the email said, what the hell is gout, and when did you get it? So I really wanted to let Rose have that for it, but he big-timed us.
It's a really important thing when a person with gout tells people, and he just let everyone know. He let the cat out of the bag.
Because you gotta tell somebody, there's a specific way to do it. You gotta sit somebody down and let them know, hey, I've got the gout.
He had the entire Cahill family worried that didn't know.
He did, because I hadn't told them yet.
It's not something you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. So Rose outing me this week on Best Damn, that was fantastic. So anyway, we had a great week on Best Damn. Next week, even better. We've got Gary Payton and Antonio Pierce guest hosting. By the way, do you know where Antonio Pierce was this week?
I have no idea.
He was interning on the Howard Stern show, so we're definitely going to ask him about that.
Are you kidding me?
No, I mean it. He was interning on the Howard Stern show. He screened phone calls. He directed Howard TV.
You mean when Howard's fans are calling up
Antonio Pierce was answering the phones.
My goodness.
Unbelievable. So we got to ask Antonio about that next week. So it's going to be a good one. And again, if you have any comments, you want to send us an email, it's bestdampodcast@yahoo.com. Can't wait to hear from you. In fact, Bernie, before we go, we got one great email this week. For those who watch the show, you know that Dibble and Rodney are no longer on Best Damn, but one fan wrote in with a Dibble-related email. Go ahead, Bernie.
All right, here we go. So this is an email, and it goes like this. While watching a Reds game, I thought I heard where Ron was leaving the Best Damn Sports Show, period. I wish you the best, Dibs, if this is true. Always a Ron Dibble fan, Don.
I'm going to say Don, not the biggest Dibble fan. Doesn't know the first name.
It's amazing how many emails we got over the past several years saying, "Oh, Dibs, I'm a huge fan."
They
all call him Ron.
I don't know if they're confusing him with Ron Darling or what, but yeah, it's Rob.
But why do they insist they're big Dibble fans if they keep calling him Ron?
Don, if you're listening, sorry to have called you out on that, but if you want to send us an email, we'll we'll certainly read it again.
And we appreciate the email.
We definitely do. So again, bestdampodcast@yahoo.com, and until next week, I'm Jason Cahill.
And I'm Bernie.
See you next week.